Stack Hunters. Bradley Stalder here with you. Dan Williamson, a fresh, familiar face, rejoins the Stack Hunters. Welcome back, Dan. It's been too long. I've missed you. I've
missed you too, Bradley. I mean, it has been a long time. I was out of the country for 3.5 weeks, which when you're moving from place to place every couple days, that's a long time to be gone. So I think we might try to keep it a little shorter the next time.
Well, what's not short is the amount of fantasy advice that Dan and I are going to bring you here today on Stack Hunters. We've got some landmines. We've got some values that we're here to discuss. We've looked at the ADPs. We have dug deep. We have cross-checked. You know Bradley's run the projections. Dan has dug his hand into the dirt and and has blown and seen which values and landmines are there. We've each projected these players for whether they are good players or not for our teams. And so, Dan, let's start off with some values. Let's hit some values. The people want values. They want to know who are the players that Bradley and Dan are targeting in their best ball drafts coming up.
Yeah, values are always more fun to talk about, aren't they? I mean, nobody likes talking about bad news, so we'll start off with some good news here. And I'm just going to go straight to the quarterback position. You can call me a homer after I'm done talking if you wish, but we're going straight to the JJM.
Yes.
You got to draft you some JJ McCarthy. So he is right now in FFPC ADP. He is the quarterback 20 in their best ball drafts. Pick 134. Going off on average at the 1202. And let me tell you, quarterback 20 is basically his floor. So I really think that people are underestimating not only what is the floor for JJ, but also what is the ceiling. Because the thing is, with Kevin O'Connell, we had some really bad quarterback play after Kirk Cousins went down, right? And we were throwing everything against the wall. We had the Pastronaut. We had Nick Mullins. We had, just a little bit of everything going on there. And you know what? O'Connell was able to make all of them work, at least for a while. And they are nowhere near in talent level where JJ McCarthy is. You have Justin Jefferson. You've got Jordan Addison. You got TJ Hawkinson. You got Aaron Jones. You've got a much improved offensive line. Everything is there for McCarthy to succeed. And you know what? This guy can use his legs a little bit too, a lot more than say a Kirk Cousins or even a Sam Darnold. He's going to be better at evading a pass rush, which hopefully will not be quite as ferocious with the new offensive line in front of him. And he's just going to get out there and do some things with his legs. So I think, and I'm going for the whole hyperbole here, he could hit the NFL similar to the way that Patrick Mahomes hit the NFL in his first year. That's the top end. That's the ceiling. That I'm not saying that's what's going to happen, but that's your ceiling outcome. And your floor outcome, I think, is pretty much Sam Darnold. So, what? Quarterback 20? Sign me up.
Dan, I've got a trivia question for you. You ready?
I am ready.
In the regular season, so 17 games, Sam Darnold played for the Minnesota Vikings. How many weeks of the 17 games did he finish outside the top 20? So 21 or worse among quarterbacks in a week.
I'm going to say 2.
3. Just 3 weeks.
Close.
Just 3 weeks. Just 3 weeks. Exactly. There were only 3 weeks where Sam Darnold finished lower than quarterback 20 on a week. He finished as the quarterback 9 in fantasy points per game. And you're telling me that JJ McCarthy, that's where he's going? Quarterback 20. He was also on my list, Dan, so now I've got to pivot I should have known better, though, that the homer would take JJ McCarthy. For those who have been following my projections for like the last however many months, Dan well knows, everyone knows, I have been projecting JJ McCarthy as top 6, top 7 pretty easily. And that's where I'm comfortable just having a massive amount of exposure to JJ McCarthy. So I am in with you. He is the late round quarterback that you should be targeting.
Yep, absolutely.
Well, another player, Dan, that I have been touting all off season, and Dan's been sick of this. Let me just say, Dan has been absolutely sick. He's sick to his stomach. He wakes up every morning. He's puking in the toilet. He is nauseous till the cows come home. He spent the entire 3.5 weeks in Europe sick that Bradley was right about DeAndre Swift surviving the draft and becoming a massive, massive value for the Chicago Bears. Oh, wow. That was beautiful. And he survives Nick Chubb now, who is expected to sign with the Houston Texans. Just J.K. Dobbins hanging out there could affect Swift, but he is still a massive value right now. Swift is going as the running back, 27. He's going as the running back 27 in most leagues. He's outside the top 24, and we've seen him as a top 12 back, and we're more in on the Chicago Bears. Talk about a beefed up offensive line. You were talking about Minnesota improving their offensive line. The Bears have gone out of the way to improve their offensive line. They have the coaching upgrade that we so sorely wanted. Roschon Johnson is fine. He's a fine player. He's okay. There's nothing special about him. Kyle Monangai is a day 3 pick. Swift handled over 60% of the rushes in this Bears offense last year. On how anemic it was, imagine he gets 60% this year on a more dynamic offense. A rising tide lifts all boats, and so many parts of this tide have been lifted, and Swift is the one standing. The other part I want to bring up, Dan, is that if they wanted to, they would. The Bears drafted a first-round tight end. They drafted a second-round wide receiver. They could have at any point in the offseason or in the draft acquired a competitive piece to push DeAndre Swift. But you know what? They didn't. Their actions speak very loudly, and DeAndre Swift is the guy. So at RB27, he is the value in this, what many would conceivably ordain the running back dead zone. Swift is not dead. He is surely alive. So he's a massive value at running back 27.
All right, Bradley, but I am going to push back a little bit. I'm not saying that another shoe is going to drop, but I am saying that there is potentially a shoe hovering over the floor with Swift in the form of there are going to be some veteran running backs made available via trade or via being cut. And so with Swift, I think you're right about the ceiling outcome. It's very, very high. He, I think, could be easily a top 15 running back. No doubt about it. But on the other hand, I am concerned about the fact that they do keep kind of nosing around veteran running backs. There's been some Nick Chubb talk. There's been some J.K. Dobbins talk. What if Travis Etienne gets made available, or Breece Hall, something like that. Things can still happen here. So while I'm buying into Swift at his price, which I am, I'm also not just like hammering it every single time. I'm being, I'm trying to hold myself back and say, you know what, there is the possibility of downside here too, so I'm not going to be just loading on Swift. Is that fair enough for you?
So what you're saying is not so Swift.
But again, I think if he comes through training camp and he's still the starting running back, RB27 is a huge value. There's no question about it. So, yeah, I think it's a player that you definitely don't want to be sitting there going, yeah, I don't like DeAndre Swift, I'm not going to take him. I think that's a poor way to go about it. I think you do need to be taking some shots at him. I like taking him where he falls a little bit, but, I definitely want to have some for sure.
All right, Dan, hit us with another value.
All right. And I'll hit you. I just happened to mention his name, but I'm gonna hit you with Travis Etienne.
Ooh.
Here's the pretzel logic behind it. Okay, he's going off as running back 37. That's pick 110, about 1004 in your best ball drafts. And here's the thing. Okay, yes, they drafted Bashaw Tutin. Yes, they have Tank Bigsby. I'm not worried about Tank Bigsby. Tank Bigsby is, in my mind, pretty much a nothing burger player who just happened to get a few good runs, but you know what? The more he ran, the more average he looked. We had Etienne, who got hurt last year, hamstring injury, was never the same after that. The previous year, he was the RB3. We do have Bashaw Tutin, and this is a new regime, new head coach, new general manager. Bashaw Tutin's their guy. So could it be Bashaw Tutin? Yes, it certainly could. But you're already getting that, that's already factored into the price on Etienne, is the fact that, Tutin might play a big role in this offense. But Tutin also does have some fumbling problems, and we know how much NFL coaches love fumblers. His first carry.
How much do they love fumblers, Dan? How much do they love them?
Well, there is no doghouse deep enough for an NFL running back who fumbles on their first carry, which apparently he did, but of course it was only in practice, and so we got all the it's a learning opportunity stuff, all of that, and don't get me wrong, I do like Bashaw Tutin. I think if he can control his fumbling problems, he's an electric running back. I like him a lot, but the other thing that can happen with Etienne is they could just say, you know what, we're going to kind of bring Tutin along slowly this year. Etienne's going to be our guy. He's on the last year of his contract. He's going to be a free agent next year. We can run him into the ground. Or they could say, you know what, we're going to call up the Chicago Bears, or maybe the Chicago Bears called us, and we're going to trade Etienne to the Chicago Bears so that we can solve our Swift problem. I'm just kidding, Bradley.
That would be a dagger there, Dan.
Yeah, that would be. But anyway, the thing is, I think if he gets offered around, there would be many teams that would be interested in acquiring the services of Travis Etienne and giving him plenty of touches as well. So I'm in on Etienne. At a running back 37 price, your downside is already baked into it, and your upside just really isn't reflected in that price at all. So that's a player I'm just going to go ahead and be grabbing some of at that price.
Yeah, Bigsby among running back at least 40 attempts from weeks 10 on. So not too much, but at least 4 rushes a game, getting some volume. He ranked Bigsby 46 of 53 qualified running backs PFF rush grade. Yikes.
Yikes.
He was bad. He was bad. Etienne was worse, but you mentioned it was, partly due to the hamstring injury. That'll affect you. Bigsby showed what he was in year 1, and in year 2 wasn't that good in the second half of the season in particular. You look at the game logs, 3 yards a carry, 3 yards a carry, 4 yards a carry, 2.7 yards a carry, 4 yards a carry. That's not going to get it done when you need explosive plays from you need explosive plays. And that's why they brought in Tutin, because he has explosiveness. He has juice. But you could see Tank and Tutin rotate through, RB2 duties. That's a possibility. Whereas, Etienne has that first-round draft capital. He has proven that he's a winner. And there is still the shower narrative that exists dating back to college. And, Trevor Lawrence being out near the end of the last season also, I think, played a role in what type of offense they wanted to run. So now that you have Brian Thomas and you have Trevor Lawrence and you have Travis Hunter, again, rising tide lifts all boats. I think they will give another chance to Etienne. But if he doesn't, he probably is going to get a good landing spot because teams will oftentimes take big gambles on former first-round picks regardless. Even if, he just didn't pan out here, maybe our environment reclaims that type of talent. Many teams will talk themselves into it.
Yep, totally agree. All right. Who do you got here, Bradley?
I'm going to go to tight end land, Dan.
All right.
And we're going to go with David Njoku, tight end
Nice.
for the Cleveland Browns. Yeah, Njoku right now is going off, in my opinion, very late. He's going as the tight end 12, behind a few of the rookies. I'll talk about one of them in the Landmines, but he's going behind rookies, and I know there's a lot of love for Jonnu Smith, but we know that was a product of the broken offense last year. I'm not as confident that that's sticky for Jonnu Smith. What I am confident is in David Njoku and him consistently producing, being a winner downfield. The Browns, yes, they have Jerry Jeudy, but who's another pass catcher on this team? It's David Njoku. They brought in Deontay Johnson, who hasn't shown up for OTAs yet. They don't have another pass catcher. Even when I put in Deontay Johnson into the projections at like a 12% target share, there's still about 50 receptions that I have that are open and unclaimed in terms of targets, and many of those could be going to David Njoku, who I already have projected as a top 5 tight end. So the pathway for Njoku to get into the Sam Laporta, TJ Hawkinson tier, that is very real. And especially if Joe Flacco is the one who's starting at the beginning of the season, it's possible that he flirts with tight end 3. So that's the type of ceiling that you want for a guy who's going as tight end 12. In the same breath as a Tucker Kraft, who, yes, he's good, but he won a lot with busted coverage. Or Dalton Kincaid, who has been dealing with inconsistency over the last couple of years, and we've been waiting for a breakout, but it hasn't happened. Give me David Njoku as a fit guy that I'm targeting because he's such a value.
Love it. I'm totally in lockstep with you here. Njoku is basically just being depressed in price because of the quarterbacks in Cleveland. Everybody's concerned about, is he going to get good enough quarterback play? Well, for one thing, they do at least have 4 options there, so that's something. I know if the old saying is, if you have 2 quarterbacks, you don't have any quarterbacks, but maybe if you have 4 quarterbacks, you got 1 quarterback.
I was about to say Cleveland has 4. Does that mean that moves it to 1 at least?
You're hoping, definitely. But Flacco has shown that he can run the Cleveland offense and do so quite well. Shedeur Sanders has looked, it sounds like, pretty good in his reps that he's had. Kenny Pickett is nobody's idea of a great answer at quarterback, but there's at least like a base level of competence there. I feel confident saying he's better than what Deshaun Watson was putting on tape last year. And then you've got the unknown in Dylan Gabriel as well. So even if they end up mixing and matching, and you're spot on about how big of a pot of the target pie he's likely to get, because you know what? There just isn't a lot else here. If you're counting on Deontay Johnson at this point, the guy has his last couple of years have been tracking right along with Antonio Brown's. So, I'm just waiting for him to run off the field in a preseason game, except that he probably won't even show up to a preseason game. So I could see Deontay Johnson getting cut before he's even made a single catch for the team. And I could also see him get cut after week 1 or week 2 when he blows up and complains that he only got 2 targets or whatever. I'm not worried about him. So you've got Jeudy, you've got Cedric Tillman, and you do have a young up and comer at tight end, Harold Fannin. But you know what? This with Njoku, he's going to get fed over Fannin. It's not like they're going to be prioritizing Fannin over Njoku. So I like where you're going here. And even if the trade rumors come true and they trade Njoku, so what? He's probably going to a team where he's going to get used a lot.
Right. People are forgetting that most of that slot is in Buffalo right now, and the Browns really did face his position. 103 targets, 61 receptions last year, 907 air yards, and David Jones, the downfield, he's a red zone threat, and he operates in the middle of the field. So the opportunity for David Jones is certainly there. That's not into his price right now. And his with another value.
So I think for my third pick, I'm going to go with a rookie wide receiver here. And I'm going to go with Luther Burden as wide receiver 52. He's going about pick 130, and that's about pick 11 and 10 in your drafts. And here's the thing, okay? Once again, we have a new regime in town. And we have a whole new offensive system. Burden is this hand-picked wide receiver that they drafted early in the second round when they could have been taking instead a running back, as Bradley noted. They could have been doing a lot of things, but they chose Burden. And immediately Ben Johnson starts talking him up. And they let Keenan Allen go. They didn't retain him. I think that what's likely to happen here is that they really like Luther Burden. They want him to succeed. Rome Odunze still might be a good wide receiver, but didn't have a great first year. And once again, that new regime, they've got no allegiance to him whatsoever. This is the old regime. That was their draft pick, their problem. So, I don't think that they feel that they have to make Rome Odunze look good. And then you've got DJ Moore, who was basically pouting his way off the team and has already been told this year that he needs to clean up his act as far as his body language. That's not a good look either. That's a look of a player who might even possibly get moved if they get tired of his attitude and his act. So I think that there's a lot more runway here for Luther Burden than a lot of people think. Even if they run a bunch of 12 personnel, I still think Luther Burden is going to be very, very involved. They're going to want to show they made the right pick. You're getting him at a great price. I don't know why there's such a disparity between him and Rome Odunze, because they've both done about exactly the same amount in the NFL, which is not a whole lot yet. So that's where I'm at. Do you think I'm crazy on that, Bradley?
Luther Burden, I feel like he's going to be a slow start. But that's what you kind of expect from these rookies. That's the natural pathway. So if they're in like a Week 17 tournament type of best ball league, not season long, I think Luther Burden is more of an avoid for season long. But if you have the tournament structure with Week 15, 16, 17, it's very possible that Luther Burden is a player that you want, given the bullishness that I have overall for the Chicago offense for a variety of reasons I laid out for Swift earlier. But Luther Burden could very well turn into the wide receiver 2 on this team. You mentioned the DJ Moore issues. There was an article in the Chicago Sun-Times where reportedly DJ Moore said, right now I don't have goals because I'm still learning everything. And I don't even know if I'm going to touch the ball as much as I did some years or if I'm going to be used the same way. So Luther Burden, he might be good. He's dealing with a soft tissue issue right now, which has been keeping him out of practice. So in the short term, I have concerns about him providing pretty quick or immediate turnaround value. But I think that, he's one of those players that it's worth sticking around for. If you got a deep bench in redraft, he's fine for you to keep around in those deeper benches. but he's not a player that I immediately see is going to be a week one immediate impact type of guy. His upside, I mean, we could look at like wide receiver 15 is probably the upside for year one. Everything goes perfectly. Come on, kind of like Amon-Ra St. Brown in year one. It was probably 99th percentile outcome. But Luther Burden, that at least exists for him. And that's what we want to take shots on, at least periodically throughout our drafts. So I don't hate on it. Just he's a player that I want to hear more good news before I start buying into him as a value.
Fair enough.
But there's some bad news about DJ Moore that I'm starting to shift my opinion on DJ Moore. So,
right.
Yikes. I'm starting to shift the needle, people.
The wheels on the bus are all wobbling right now.
Yeah, this is not. If they wanted to, they would, and they did with wide receiver and tight end. Dak Prescott, though, I view as a major quarterback value as well. This is a team that Dak is now healthy. CeeDee Lamb returns. There is a nothing burger at running back. That means that Dak Prescott's going to be passing. And guess what? They got a new pass catcher in George Pickens, who is probably as good of a number 2 wide receiver as there is in the NFL. T. Higgins probably is better, but outside of T. Higgins, name me a better wide receiver 2 on a team. It's George Pickens. He's very, very good. And so having those two guys who play different roles down the field for big plays, we're going to see that happen. So I'm here for a Dak Prescott bounce back, given that he's going as quarterback 14. Quarterback 14, you're getting him in like round 10. Major value. So you can go Prescott and McCarthy late in your drafts, and I think you're in good shape. Dan, how are you viewing Dak Prescott?
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right on with this one. Dak has all his weapons. He's coming off of this injury, and also, and very importantly, Bradley, you need to remember this. This is extremely important. It is an odd numbered year, and Dak Prescott does very well in odd numbered years. That's a stat you can take to the bank. I mean, 2019 he was the quarterback 2. 2020 he was a quarterback 30. 2021 he was quarterback 6. 2022 quarterback 18. 2023 quarterback 3. 2024 quarterback 31. We're due.
Look at that.
We're due.
We are so due. We are so due.
This is analysis you're not going to find just anywhere. Let me tell you that.
Stack Hunters is the place for it. Dan, I do have to say that what encourages me about Dak Prescott is not only all the things that we mentioned and the funny stats, but from a macro view, this division has become now suddenly very competitive and much more of an offensive juggernaut. So you're going to see the Cowboys start to get into some more shootouts than normal, or reclaim some of the shootout potential that we had seen in previous years that maybe was lacking, over the last year or so. Dak Prescott, I'm here for all of those reasons.
Yeah, and I'm kidding about the even odd numbered years, but it's just worked out that in the odd numbered years, that's been the years where he has stayed healthy and he's had good weapons. And when that happens, Dak performs. So, in the way that it looks this year, that's the way I'm betting, is that he is going to have his weapons, and as long as he stays healthy, and I think he probably will, boom, he's going to perform. So, love this pick.
Boom, Dan. Hit us with another value.
All right, I'm going to hit you with Chris Olave. Wide receiver 37, pick 77. Catch him at the 704 in your FFPC best ball drafts. And let me tell you why. Number one, he's not going to have David Carr throwing hospital balls to him anymore. And that's
I love how you called him David Carr.
Or Derek Carr, yes, whatever.
I love it.
Yeah. Yes,
that's how bad it was.
That's how bad it was. But you know what? Carr was kind of good and kind of bad for Olave because he he did throw a lot of hospital balls, which is bad, but he also targeted him a lot, which is good. I think he's probably going to be targeted an awful lot in this offense. This is a team that should be behind often. They should be playing a lot of garbage time. And if Olave stays healthy, I mean, wide receiver 37, that's ridiculous. I mean, the concussion possibilities are fully priced in at this point. So, you're looking for upside at that time in the draft. The time to play it safe is more in the early rounds. The time to be looking for upside as you start getting out of those early rounds and start getting into the mid-side rounds. And Olave's got that upside on a per-game basis, and also if he stays healthy on a season-long basis as well.
Whew. Olave, and then right next to him, Jerry Jeudy is another value that I've spent a lot of time diving into. I'll save that for another day. People, Jerry Jeudy is also a major buy alongside Chris Olave. These are the where you make your generational wealth. Okay.
Yes.
The last value for me is Jakobi Meyers. He's, even later after Jeudy and Olave, but Meyers is now the Tyler Lockett of yesteryear, just consistently putting up top 20 seasons. And yes, the Raiders brought in Jack Betch, but there's no one else there. Dante Thornton. I love Thornton. I think he's a project, though. Long term, immediately, it's going to be Bowers, still Meyers, and Geno Smith is a massive, massive quarterback upgrade. So for Meyers, who was, wide receiver 20 last year, is now wide receiver 40. The math doesn't math, Dan. So give me a major value at Jakobi Meyers.
I like it. I think that's very sharp. Meyers has when's the last time Meyers had a good quarterback? Ever?
Was Tom Brady around back with the Patriots days?
Maybe. I'm not sure. Maybe in his first year, but I mean, and that wasn't exactly the best version of Brady either. At that point. So, I think this is probably the best quarterback play he's likely to get in his career to date. And, he's got Chip Kelly, who definitely can design a good offense. We've seen him succeed in the NFL before, for sure. And he's done very, very well in college. So, I think this is going to be a little bit of a faster-paced offense. I think this is going to be an offense that can hit you multiple ways. They're going to be running Genty a lot. There's no doubt about it. They're going to rely on the ground game a lot. But, it's basically Bowers and Meyers through the air, and that's going to be where most of the targets are going. Jack Beck, more like Jack Black.
Fair enough. All right. This is great. We had a dive. We dove deep into these values in the best ball streets. When we return, we're going to talk about some landmines. Dan, we're going to get the sad music playing. We'll be all upset. Your favorite players are going to be, their bubbles are going to be burst by Dan and myself. Before we get to that, a word from the FFPC.
Hey, why do we partner with the FFPC? Because they have the widest variety of fantasy football formats, and it's the easiest place to find all types of fantasy football contests in the world. What if you want to play for high stakes? Well, they have a $6 million prize pool with their Fantasy Players Championship. They also have way too early best ball leagues that start in February and Dynasty leagues. They have the closest thing to a liquid market for orphans that there is in all of Dynasty. And the FFPC has sponsored us for half a decade because we are actually delivering information that can help fantasy gamers, and they're generating so much interest and bringing in so many new users, casual users even. The FFPC creates a unique experience where you can both compete against the best and make money. Use promo code UNDERWORLD to get $25 off your first team. $25 off your first team at the FFPC with promo code UNDERWORLD. Go get it!
That's right. Go get it at the FFPC. But you're not going to go get these players. Dan, hit us with your first landmine, must avoid player that you are, okay, maybe it's not zero exposure, but you are saying, I don't want a piece of this player if I can really help it. If I've got a choice between this player and another player, I'd rather just go the other player. Who's your first landmine, Dan?
All right. I'm thinking you may not like this one very much, Bradley, but I've just got to go there.
DeAndre Swift. No.
No, that's not it. But I am going to go with T. Higgins, wide receiver 12, 26 overall, 3.04 in your best ball streets in the FFPC. I mean, I get it that he's a very good wide receiver, but you know what? You're taking him at wide receiver 12. He's second fiddle to Jamar Chase. Yes, this is an offense that can support two wide receivers, but it's really hard to support two wide receiver ones. I think we're taking Chase basically at the very top of his range of outcomes here, unless there's taking Higgins at the top of his range of outcomes here, unless there's an injury to Chase. And I don't like betting on injuries, so I just don't see. I would rather take, Garrett Wilson. I would rather take Rashee Rice. I would rather take Jackson Smith and Jigba. I'd rather take Terry McLaurin. These are all players that are going after T. Higgins. So I love what he can do. I like the fact that he got the new contract. I like this offense. I think this offense is going to be a pinball machine. But wide receiver 12, it's the ceiling for me.
Oh, Dan, we're going to have to fight about this one.
Yes, we are.
I love it. T. Higgins is my projected wide receiver 4. And it's partly to do, that's Dan is shaking his head. Not only does Dan not want him at wide receiver 12, he definitely doesn't want him at wide receiver 4. And my argument for Higgins is pretty simple. He out-targeted Jamar Chase for most of last season. It was just near the end of the season where Jamar Chase out-targeted him. We know Higgins has the touchdown equity. He's a 24% target share guy. Chase is more of a 27 to 28%. But there's only a handful of wide receivers in the entire league who get there. And it's a consolidated share, so we know all the targets are going to Chase or Higgins. A sprinkling to Chase Brown, a sprinkling to Mike Gesicki. But there's no real wide receiver 3 on this team. So give me T. Higgins. He's one of my values, Dan, if anything.
Well, if he hits wide receiver 12 on the year, and I understand it's a weekly game, but if he hits wide receiver 12 on the year, that will be his best finish ever. His previous best finish was wide receiver 17 last year.
Well, his
now,
17
and 12 games.
Total
That's
points.
Yeah, that's the key. Total points, 12 games. If you do it on a per game basis, he comes out looking a lot better. I will definitely
wide
agree
receiver
with you there.
5 in
Yes.
fantasy points per game last year.
Right. But on the other hand, one of the best abilities is availability. You do want him available for 17 games if possible. And he just doesn't get much above. He's gotten 12 games the past couple years, 16, 14, 16. There's a little bit of concern about health. There's also a little bit of concern about whether he can maintain the pace. So I get where you're coming from, Bradley. I do think on a week-to-week basis he is a very valuable weapon. I don't know. I can't get there. I think he's being purchased at his ceiling price. If he was about a round later, I would probably be buying in. But at that price, I can't do it.
Oh, sorry, Dan. Dan. You and I are not seeing eye to eye on that one.
Yeah,
but it's okay. It's okay. Dan, I'm going to give you a landmine. And, we kind of danced around this player a little bit already in the podcast, but it's Colston Loveland.
Ooh.
Tight end, first-round pick for the Chicago Bears. We talk all the time about mouths getting fed in offenses. We already have Cole Kmet, who is not going to go away. as much as we love Colston Loveland and his talent and his draft capital and his ability as a prospect, this was a long-term investment. Cole Kmet still has one more year on his contract. He has been a producer before. And so Colston Loveland is getting a lot of like Sam Laporta comps. The Detroit Lions did not have a Cole Kmet type on their team when Sam Laporta was drafted. It's just Sam Laporta. Who? Like Zylstra, right? Brock Wright as your tight ends? No, it's like it's clearly Sam Laporta, the first round draft capital guy. But you have Colston Loveland here, who's also competing middle of the field with Luther Burden, who you identified as a value. You also have DJ Moore. You have Roma Dunze. You have DeAndre Swift. You have other pieces in this offense. And Loveland is still nursing a shoulder injury that he's been has kept him out of the rookie mini camps. And if he misses more time, like he's already behind. He's already behind. And what we've seen over the last couple of years is players who have suffered insignificant injuries in college have a slow time getting started in the NFL. We look at Jamison Williams from a couple of years ago. We look at Jonathan Brooks, players who suffered these injuries that cost them a lot of ramp-up time in the offseason. So Colston Loveland is a player that I'm willing to draft him at cost in dynasty leagues, but he is a landmine for 2025 for your fantasy league. And right now, he's going as the tight end 10. He's going ahead of David Njoku.
Wait a second. Now I've got him at tight end 14. Are you looking at best ball or are you looking at
the best ball? Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Underdog, yeah.
Oh, underdog. Okay.
Yeah.
That would be it.
If FFPC has him a little bit lower,
yeah, I mean, tight end 14 there on the FFPC. So
still, like Dallas Goedert or Colston Loveland, it's easily Dallas Goedert. Oh,
but that speaks more to that I'm not super high on Goddard than it does to
fair enough.
Loveland. Basically the way I look at it is I think you're right because, and especially with the injury situation that's going on, that does make it tough on him. I think there is a world where Loveland is a top 10 tight end this year. If this injury thing goes away pretty quickly and he gets into into mini camp and he gets into training camp and everything's going well and Ben Johnson is all about feeding his new guys. You could see an offense that's actually kind of built a little bit more around Loveland and Burden, but I don't think it's likely to happen that way. I think that Loveland faces more headwinds than Burden, and for that reason, I'm not really drafting him very much in best ball. I'm a lot more into, as you said, taking him in Dynasty because I do think he's a very, very good Dynasty play. But the upside this year is probably capped. What I will say is, if you take either Burden or Loveland, probably one of those guys is going to work out pretty well by the time, we get to week 8, week 9, week 10, something like that. I think one of those guys is going to probably start clicking. Hard to say which one. I'm putting my chips on Burden more so than Loveland, but I can see the world where it happens with Loveland. So I'm overall with you on this one, Bradley. I think he's there are a lot of headwinds here that you would have to get around to really see this pick work out for you.
All right, Dan, hit us with your next landmine.
All right, I'm just going to stick with tight ends, and I'm going straight to Travis Kelce. That might be another one that you're not super wild about, but you know what? Kelce is ancient. All of his efficiency stats are cratering through the floor. This offense is getting rebuilt, and it's getting rebuilt around guys like Rashee Rice and Xavier Worthy and even Jalen Royals possibly. This offense is going to change. Andy Reid is not we love it in fantasy football when we can just say, oh, well, we're gonna keep putting players in the same boxes. They have to have a good tight end. No, they don't have to have a good tight end. Andy Reid has had offenses many times without a good tight end. It's just that we've gotten really used to Kelce being that guy. But I don't see Kelce as being a major producer. I think that this is the year where the wheels finally come off. I know that he and Mahomes are both talking real big. I know Mahomes likes him. He's a security blanket, but he's a lot more to me a Jake Ferguson than he is a Brock Bowers.
So I moved Kelce down in the projections. He is now my tight end 7. He is behind TJ Hawkinson, behind Njoku, behind Kittle, Bowers, McBride. Jonnu Smith is there as well, but I'm monitoring that situation in terms of whether he goes to Pittsburgh, because if Jonnu does go to Pittsburgh, that craters him significantly. So, yeah, Kelce, I've had to move him down from the efficiency metrics, from the targets, all of that. I'm with you. It's hard though to move him down too low because he is a safety valve. He may get 6 yards, 8 yards, and a reception. But if Mahomes is struggling to get the ball down the field, which we're monitoring the Rashee Rice injury situation, we're monitoring, Xavier Worthy's situation, whether he faces any discipline, both of those guys, the reality is they play downfield more as well. But Kelce could just be that safety outlet, and Zach Ertz, he could just take the Zach Ertz pathway of falling into the end zone 7 times, and it doesn't really matter much. He could be just Jason Witten, tight end 10 for the next 3 years. It's possible. And yeah, he's not the tight end 1 like he used to be, but old man strength still exists, and depends on when he wants to just ride off in the sunset with Taylor Swift. That's, good on Kelce.
Yes, you do have to wonder when that's going to happen. But yeah, it's just that he's 35, going to turn 36. Tight ends, when they get to that age, it's really tough. I mean, we saw it with Tony Gonzalez. We've seen it with the great tight ends before. There's just a point that it gets really tough to play that position. I mean, kudos to Mercedes Lewis, who's still somehow going strong and trying for a 20th year in the NFL. But it's been a minute since he's been relevant. I'm not saying that he's in any way, shape, or form comparable to Kelce, but, tight end, they age like fine wine, but you know what? Eventually, every wine turns into vinegar sooner or later if you don't drink them in time. So I'm thinking Kelce's getting closer to his vinegar years than his fine wine years.
There's the title of the podcast. Travis Kelce, Vinegar Years. I need to write that down. Where's the pen? Travis Kelce, Vinegar Years. Fantastic. We're going to stay in Kansas City. One of the players that I have as a landmine is Xavier Worthy. I don't hate the talent. I just am not a believer of him at the value that he's going at right now. You can't have your cake and eat it too in terms of Rashee Rice versus Xavier Worthy. Right now, Rice is going as wide receiver 15, and Xavier Worthy is going as wide receiver 21. I have moved Rice up in my projections, given that it seems like he's going to avoid significant jail time or any significant league discipline. He also looks healthy. So round 3 Rashee Rice feels like a good value. But when you look at where Xavier Worthy was winning, it was all because of Rashee Rice being out, Travis Kelce taking a downturn. If Rice is back, who's a 24% target share guy, I have Worthy at 19%. That gets him at 110 targets for 66 receptions, maybe 5 or 6 touchdowns. He's got big playability, no doubt. But do we trust Matt Nagy to get Patrick Mahomes and Xavier Worthy to connect all the time? No, I don't. And even when he did hit, the target share isn't high enough for me to be targeting Xavier Worthy at that 3-4 turn. I'd rather have a Ted McMillan, a DJ Moore. I'd rather have those types of players, heck, Devontae Adams, given the target share there, than a Xavier Worthy. His profile just does not fit with the consistent production. It's more of a Deshaun Jackson type of player that, yes, he gives you spike weeks, but I'd rather have Xavier Worthy down in the like Jamison Williams, Jalen Waddle level, like that area. But I think it's the Chief sponsorship that keeps his ADP so high.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I definitely have some concerns with Worthy as well. I think those who look at what he did for most of the season, that was almost an epically bad run out for how things went. Like he would be just one step out, half a step out of bounds, or there'd be a penalty on the play or whatever. Mahomes and Worthy just were not hitting on those deep shots. Then all of a sudden in the playoffs and the Super Bowl, and even the last couple weeks of the regular season, they really started clicking on that. And I think that's also almost equally as much of a mirage as the first part of the season. I don't think you can expect them to click at the rate where they clicked. But, it still comes down to the fact that this is a player who I think has elite speed, and I think he's got really good ball skills, and Mahomes is not afraid to throw it deep at all. So if Kelce goes down, Worthy is going to pick up, I think, a good amount of that slack, plays a different position. He's not picking up those exact targets, but probably Rice is going to pick up those targets, and then Worthy is going to pick up some of the stuff that Rice might have otherwise been doing had Kelce been fine. So I do agree where Worthy is going right now. It's it's kind of nosebleed territory for a player of his type, I guess.
All right, Dan, hit us with your last landmine of the night.
All right. Oh, man, I got two. I'm just gonna go for broke here. I've been talking up Bears receivers, but you know what? Caleb Williams at quarterback 10. I just can't get there. I just can't. Sorry. I think he's probably going to be fine at quarterback. I'm going to stop short of saying a good quarterback because there were way too many problems last year. Not all of them self-inflicted. I mean, he had plenty of headwinds. There's no doubt about that. But I expect quarterbacks who are really, really excellent in the way that he would need to be to live up to that ranking. I didn't see that out of him. I mean, it's okay. Quarterbacks can overcome bad circumstances, and the really great ones actually do. I don't think he's truly great. I think he was probably a little bit overdrafted. I think Bo Nix and JJ McCarthy are probably going to end up being, and Jaden Daniels, of course, are all going to be better NFL quarterbacks than Caleb Williams. Not that I'm saying Caleb Williams is going to be a bad quarterback, but I think he's more, I don't know. I hate to use Andy Dalton because Andy Dalton was not a bad NFL quarterback for a long time. He just wasn't ever a great NFL quarterback. That's kind of where I have Caleb right now. Maybe I'll be proven wrong, but I don't know. I just don't think that he is a game changer at that position.
Man, you and I disagree again, Dan.
Oh, wow.
Caleb Williams is the truth. The Bears are going to be good this year, and this is coming from a Packers fan who just despises the Bears. They're going to be tough. They're going to be tough. Dan is wish casting that the Bears stay bad.
I don't know. I don't think they're necessarily going to be bad. I don't know. Quarterback 10, man. I just don't see it. I can name about 15 quarterbacks I'd prefer to draft in front of Caleb Williams.
All right, fine. We'll play a game. We've got a hot second.
Right.
Caleb Williams or Jared Goff?
Goff.
Oh, it's Williams. That's easy. Caleb Williams or Drake May?
I think we're hoping that Caleb Williams can turn into Jared Goff. I think that's the hope. Honestly, yeah. May and Williams probably. That's a tough one. I mean, because I think May is a lot better using his legs, and I think they're going to unleash him a little bit more that way, which is what makes it a horse race here. So yeah, that's a tie.
All right, last one: Caleb Williams or Justin Fields.
Fields. Give me
I can
Fields.
see the argument. I can see the argument for Fields from the rushing perspective. Caleb did rush a lot last year, although part of it is he was running for his life.
Right, exactly, and that's the thing. I mean, I don't think Ben Johnson wants him running that much. I could be wrong. I think he wants him to use his legs to extend plays, but I don't think he's really looking for him to, turn into a running quarterback, as it were.
Fair enough. Well, the last player that I think is going to be, just a landmine, a player that we should avoid, and it's newly acquired wide receiver DK Metcalf for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And DK Metcalf is, we know Aaron Rodgers is going to be the quarterback of this team. He was he had signed a 1-year deal, $13 million. But DK Metcalf, he gets traded from Seattle. We look at what his history is. From a PPR perspective, this is what he did in 2020. He was the wide receiver 7. In 2021, he was wide receiver 14. In 2022, wide receiver 16. In 2023, wide receiver 21. 2024, wide receiver 32. This is trending the wrong way for DK Metcalf. Okay, and now you land on one of the run-heaviest, slow-pace play teams from 2024, and then you add Aaron Rodgers, who is the slowest quarterback in terms of processing plays. It's an Arthur Smith offense. You're lucky you're going to see 70% of routes run by DK Metcalf. And you think about the chemistry that Rodgers has to have with his wide receiver 1. He was struggling with Garrett Wilson, who's one of the better route runners. DK Metcalf is not known for being a good route runner. Literally, we could see major blow-ups on the sidelines between Metcalf and Rodgers this off. We were already seeing blow-ups on the sidelines between Garrett Wilson and Aaron Rodgers. So we have a chemistry issue. We have a new team issue. We have an offensive coordinator issue. We have just the scheme in general issue. Yes, he's the only wide receiver in town, but it really won't matter. So wide receiver 27 for DK Metcalf, I'm out. I would need to see DK Metcalf get down to like the Chris Olave, Jerry Jeudy area, like outside the top 36 of wide receivers, for me to be at least eyebrow raising for DK Metcalf. I just can't do it, Dan. I can't do it.
I'm with you, Bradley. I mean, it's one that, on the surface you want to love. You want to say, oh, hey, he finally got out of Seattle. He's going to be the wide receiver 1 in Pittsburgh. Aaron Rodgers is going to be the quarterback. Look at the beautiful things that Aaron Rodgers and Davante Adams were able to do together. But it just, Davante Adams and DK Metcalf do not run routes the same way at all. No. There is a real difference there that's very obvious to the eye. I don't see it, and we know that Arthur Smith offenses, we have yet to see a wide receiver get out of about 120 targets over the course of a year. That's kind of the ceiling. And I just don't think DK Metcalf is really cut out to be a number 1 wide receiver. I think he is a better change-up play than your main bread and butter guy. And that's going to be difficult in Pittsburgh because he has to be that number 1 guy. There's nobody else. He doesn't even have a Tyler Lockett or Jackson Smith and Jigba to help take some of the pressure off and free him up a little bit more. So, teams have always been, they're wary about him because of his speed and his size. And, when he does catch the ball and he's, if he catches it in stride, he's going to do some damage. But I don't know. I worry about this one too, Bradley. I have 0% right now on my best ball teams. Well, no, probably not 0%, but I think I'm down at about 2%. I think I have a share or two, but that's about it. And I'm only taking him if he falls, and even then, there are so many other players I'd rather have.
Gross.
Yes.
Just gross. I have Metcalf projected for 110 targets, 67 receptions, barely 1,000 receiving yards, and 6.5 touchdowns. So,
And where does that put him in your projections?
yeah, let me filter out here. Yeah, he ends up being, select all, the wide receiver. Wide receiver 28, I suppose, but it's a coin flip. Like, literally, the numbers put him in the same spot as Jordan Addison, Calvin Ridley, Zay Flowers, Chris Olave, like right there.
Mm-hmm.
So, but the downside, like that's a median projection. I think the downside very much exists for DK Metcalf. Like his best ball value rating, let me resort it by that because that's total points.
Mm-hmm.
DK Metcalf right now in the best ball value rating is, still wide receiver 28, but like Jordan Addison jumps him. You know, you have Garrett Wilson, Jackson Smith-Njigba, Travis Hunter, Marvin Harrison all jumping him, you know, in terms of that. So, and George Pickens moves up, you know, with this trade. He's very close.
Right. So let me give you a couple on the clock ones. Would you rather have DK Metcalf or Cortland Sutton?
Sutton.
DK Metcalf or Jerry Jeudy?
Jeudy.
Metcalf or Godwin?
Metcalf, because I'm not sure Godwin plays all the games.
Okay. Metcalf or Waddle?
Metcalf. But I don't feel great about that one.
Yeah. Last one. Metcalf or Hunter? Travis Hunter.
Yeah, give me Travis Hunter.
Yeah.
I'd rather take a swing on Travis Hunter.
All these guys I just listed off are going behind DK Metcalf in ADP.
Love it. Love it, Dan. Well, this was a lot of fun getting you back in the saddle. Great
Yes.
that the Stack Hunters are back at it. Dan will continue his summer escape to different places throughout the summer, but Dan will be back. Don't you worry, people. Dan is going to be back here on the Stack Hunters, on the Player Profile Now Plus Network. Until next time, everyone, good luck in the best ball streets.